Listen, friends. I am your storyteller tonight. Come closer and warm your hands by the fire in your mind. I will tell you about Osazuwa, a lean boy who carried an old net and a stubborn hope. On a red earth morning by the Ikpoba River, he stood by a dark, round pool. He threw his net again and pulled up only leaves and river foam. Boys on the bank laughed and beat the water with sticks, shouting, "Try again, fisherman with no fish." If you're watching this video, please like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching my folktale story from. I want to know how far it has traveled. I watched Osazuwa steady his breath. He was not angry. He only looked at the pool that did not move, the one elders called Udoalakan, the deep of the water spirit. The tall reed swayed though the surface was still as a closed eye. Somewhere under that eye, something waited. He felt it like a tug inside his chest. The sun rose higher. His hands shook from effort, yet he stayed. He told himself, if the river has a door, it must be here. Then the wind dropped. Even the laughing boys went quiet. A bubble rose and popped. Osazuwa took one slow step toward the water and held the net at his side. He was ready for whatever might answer him. That afternoon the market sounded like drums. Osazuwa walked through with an empty basket and a wooden comb he had carved. He traded the comb for cassava so his mother, Arai, could eat. He hid his tired face with a small smile and thanked the woman who bartered kindly. Flies buzzed over smoked fish, and cloth sellers called out colors. A town drummer passed, beating a talking drum, naming the days until the river festival, 3 days more. People cheered. Children danced around the drummer and clapped in time. He stopped beside a calabash seller and listened to the drum fading toward the river road. "Maybe the water will hear me then," he whispered. He looked at the empty basket and felt its weight anyway. He saw 2 boys from the river laughing again, but he did not answer them. He bought palm oil with the last cowries and turned home. I walked behind him, a quiet shadow, as the red dust rose around his ankles. His house was small, with a door that stuck. Inside, Arai lay resting. Osazuwa cooked cassava for her and mixed the oil in so it tasted warm and rich. He told her the festival was near. She smiled and touched his arm. "Your hands are honest," she said. "The river knows." When she slept again, he stepped outside. He faced the road toward Ikpoba and breathed deep, the way a swimmer does before the plunge. Hope felt risky, but he would try anyway. Dark came gently, like cloth over a lamp. Osazuwa did not eat. He sat by a small fire behind the house. He poured a little palm wine on the ground and spoke to the river as to an elder. "I am young but I can work," he said. "Please give me a fair chance. Let my net find honest food. I will share the first of anything I catch." The moon rose and laid a bright path across the water far away. It looked like a coin someone had dropped from the sky. The night bugs sang. Arai slept inside, her breath soft and even. Osazuwa's stomach pinched, but his voice stayed steady. He told the fire his plan for morning. He would rise early. He would try the deep pool first. He would not answer laughter or teasing. He would keep his promise to share. The flames made a low sound, like a cat purring. Then a reed rustled. A soft voice came from the dark edge of the yard, close to the river path. "Do you really mean what you said?" it asked. Osazuwa stood, heart pounding. He could not see who spoke, only the shape of mist around the reeds. He did not run. "Yes," he answered. "I mean it with my whole heart." The mist shifted once, as if nodding, and the night grew very, very still. From the mist stepped a woman with shells in her hair and beads like small rivers around her neck. Her feet did not crush the wet grass. She stood in the moonlight and looked straight at Osazuwa. "I am a messenger," she said, "sent by Alakan, spirit of the water. Your words have reached the deep places." Her voice was gentle but strong, like the pull of a tide. She lifted her hand and pointed toward the Ikpoba River, toward the black circle of the pool called Udualakan. Cast your net there, she told him. Do not fear the quiet water. It hears better than loud water. Osazuwa nodded, brave but shaking a little. Will I find food for my mother? He asked. You will find what your promise earns, she said. Remember your vow to share your first gifts. Hold it tight. A sudden splash sounded from the reeds. 2 round eyes shone from the water and watched them, bright as new cowries. The messenger smiled at the eyes and then vanished like breath on glass. The reeds fell quiet again. Osazuwa stood alone under the moon, listening to his own heart. He went to the doorway and checked on Arai. She slept. He took the net in his hands and waited for first light, when promises are tested. At dawn the world smelled of wet clay. Osazuwa pushed his little canoe into the river. The paddle creaked like an old bone. I followed in spirit, close as a whisper, while he rowed to the dark circle called Udualakan. The pool was still, as if it held its breath. He set his feet wide and let his net open in the air. It fell like a gray wing and spread across the face of the water. For a heartbeat nothing moved. Then the rope gave a hard pull, like a strong hand from below. The canoe tilted. Osazuwa gasped and braced his feet. He pulled with both arms, muscles burning, teeth set tight. The net grew heavy, heavier than any catch he had known. The water around the mesh bubbled. He feared it might be a log, or a spirit angry at him. Keep your promise, he told himself. Do not fear blessing or trial. He wrapped the rope around a post and heaved. Something bright flashed under the surface, a light like morning inside the water. The boys from yesterday were not there to laugh. No one saw this moment but me, the river, and the sky. With a last shout, Osazuwa lifted the dripping net over the canoe's lip. Something heavy and shining thumped onto the floorboards and hummed softly in the dawn. The net spilled open, and Osazuwa dropped back, gasping. In the bottom of the canoe lay a fish made of pure gold. Its scales gleamed like sunlight on water. Its eyes glowed softly, and its body gave a low hum, as if it breathed music. Osazuwa stared in wonder. His first thought was to cover it, hide it, and run to the market. Such a fish could buy a house, a farm, and food for many years. He imagined Arai smiling, her belly full every night. But the mist stirred, and the messenger's voice returned in his memory. Do not eat it or sell it. Take it to the Oba, the king. He touched the fish's side. It was warm, alive, and yet not like any other creature. He whispered, I will obey. Just then, footsteps crunched on the riverbank. He looked up quickly. In the half-light, 2 shadows moved among the trees. He heard their murmurs and saw them staring at the shine in his canoe. He covered the golden fish with a woven mat and paddled toward shore. His arms shook, not from fear of the fish, but from the greedy eyes watching. The drums from the palace began to sound in the distance, calling the city awake. Osazuwa knew the day ahead would test him more than the river ever had. On the path home, 2 men stepped out, Amareg and Igadalo, his neighbors. They wore wide smiles that felt sharp, like knives. Brother Osazuwa, Amareg said, your net seems heavy this morning. What blessing did you find? Osazuwa hugged the mat close. Only food for my mother, he said. But their eyes had already measured the shine they glimpsed. Igadalo licked his lips. We should borrow your net, just for today, he said. Surely it has learned a new trick. Osazuwa shook his head. This net belongs to my father. I cannot lend it. He walked past them, keeping his steps even. Their laughter followed him, but it was not friendly. At his hut, he laid the golden fish inside and prayed Arai would not stir to see it. She was too weak for shocks. Then, across the city, drums rolled again, low and steady. The Oba's messengers were calling all people to court. Osazuwa looked at the fish, then at the dust rising in the distance. It must be now, he whispered. He wrapped the shining creature carefully and lifted it onto his shoulder. He began the long walk toward Benin City, never looking back, though he felt Amoreg's gaze burning from the trees. The sun climbed high as Osazuwa reached the city walls. Coral stones glowed red, and guards in leopard skin cloaks stood watch with spears shining. His bundle drew stares. He bowed low and explained he carried a gift for the Oba. One guard frowned but let him pass, muttering, "We will see what this poor fisherman brings." The palace courtyard was wide, lined with coral walls and carvings of warriors. People crowded to see the poor boy with his strange bundle. The Oba himself sat on a carved stool, wearing beads that shone like fire. Osazuwa knelt and opened the mat. The golden fish shone so brightly that courtiers raised their hands to shield their eyes. Gasps filled the courtyard. The Oba leaned forward, eyes wide, then calm. "What spirit sent this?" he asked. Osazuwa kept his head low. "Great king, I cast my net in Udoalakan. The river gave me this gift. The messenger told me to bring it to you." The fish gave a low hum, as though agreeing. The Oba ordered silence. Even the parrots in the trees hushed. Then the king lifted his hand and said, "Let us weigh this wonder." At once, the court attendants rushed to bring scales of brass, beads, cowries, and papers of land. The test was about to begin. The scales stood ready, shining under the sun. The Oba ordered beads piled high on one side, cowries on another, then papers granting farmlands. All together they weighed like stone. Yet when the golden fish was set on the other side, the scales tipped, heavier still. A murmur spread through the crowd. The Oba's face grew serious. "This fish outweighs wealth, land, and treasure," he said. "Tell me, boy, with what heart did you bring it here?" Osazuwa spoke clear though his knees shook. "I came with no thought of selling or keeping. The messenger told me to give it to you. I only ask for fair work, and that my mother and my neighbors may eat." The Oba studied him, then turned to the court. "This gift was brought with a clean heart. The river watches who obeys." He raised his staff. "Let us reward him as he deserves." The court fell silent, waiting. Even the Oba's senior priest lowered his eyes. Osazuwa bowed, not knowing what fate would follow next, but feeling the fish's quiet hum steady his breath. The Oba stood tall. "Osazuwa," he said, "you have given without thought of greed. For this, I grant you land by the river, 2 strong calves, and red bead necklaces to mark your honor." He clapped his hands. Servants brought forward gifts wrapped in cloth. A guard stepped close. "You will walk him home safely," the king commanded. Osazuwa's eyes filled, but he bowed deeply. "Great king, I thank you. Let me share food first with widows and hungry children before I keep anything." The Oba's face softened. "So be it," he said. The crowd buzzed with surprise. In a shadowed corner, the Oba's priest narrowed his eyes and whispered to himself. His lips curled into a hidden smile that did not reach his eyes. As Osazuwa left the palace, drums beat slowly, carrying the news to the city. He clutched the gifts but thought only of his vow. Behind him, whispers grew among courtiers. Some praised his honesty, others muttered that no poor fisherman should shine so brightly in the king's sight. The sun dipped lower as Osazuwa walked toward home with the guard. Somewhere in the shadows, Amareg and Igadalo watched, their faces hard, their plans unspoken. The river had given its gift, but envy had already begun to stir on dry land. Back by the river, Osazuwa kept his vow. He cooked yam, cassava, and fish he had bought with his reward. He spread mats and called neighbors, widows, and children. They gathered, smiling and clapping. He set one full bowl by the water's edge and whispered, "Thank you, river. May your kindness flow to many." The children laughed as they chased the calves, their little feet leaving prints in the soft soil. The air smelled of palm oil and roasted maize. Some men clapped him on the back and said, "You have found favor." But Amareg sat beneath a tree, his eyes dark. He ate without smiling, his hand gripping the food too tightly. He looked past the feast, past the children's laughter, past Osazuwa himself. His gaze settled on the shining water. His lips pressed tight, as though sealing in thoughts too dangerous to spill. Night fell with warm breeze and low croaking frogs. Osazuwa walked to the shrine corner of his yard and bowed. "I will bring my first gifts each time," he promised. Behind him, the river's current sounded like gentle applause. Yet not far away, two men leaned close to one another, their voices low and sharp. Envy had already grown into a plan. That very night, under a slice of moon, Amareg and Igadalo hurried to the dark pool. Their steps broke reeds, their whispers broke silence. "We will have what Osazuwa has," Amareg muttered. "The river must give us gold, too." They carried bigger, stronger nets woven fresh that morning. Their voices rattled like dry gourds. They threw quick words to the river, but their prayers smelled of greed, not hope. They cast their nets wide, laughing with hunger in their hearts. At once, the ropes tugged hard. "See? The river answers us," Igadalo shouted. They pulled with sweating arms. The nets bulged. But when they dragged them to shore, what spilled out were slippery black stones and snakes that writhed like fire. The snakes snapped and bit. Igadalo screamed as one coiled around his ankle. They flung the nets away and ran stumbling, leaving trails of blood in the dust. The stones rolled back into the pool as though they had never left. The river went still again, silent as before. The men limped home, their bodies sore, their hearts burning with anger. Still, their greed was not finished. Morning light fell on the market. Amareg's leg throbbed where the snake had bit. Igadalo wrapped his ankle in cloth and cursed softly. They sat apart while people whispered, "The river knows who is greedy." "Did you hear what happened last night?" The story spread like smoke, curling into every ear. Some shook their heads in pity, others smirked. Osazuwa walked through the crowd with a calm face. He heard the whispers too but did not answer. He sold cassava, bought millet, and carried food to widows with quiet steps. That night, when the sun sank, he carried shells and palm leaves to the riverbank. He built a small shrine by the water, a roof of leaves, a table of stone, and a mat of woven grass. On it he laid his first fish, his first yam, his first oil. "I will keep my vow," he said. A light rain fell, touching only the shrine, not the fields beyond. Fishermen downriver later swore they felt a new, soft current easing their boats. In the shadows, Amareg watched. His mouth twisted. "So this is the trick," he whispered. "He keeps it all for himself and pretends to share with spirits. Let us see how long the river favors him." At sunset, the mist stirred once again. The messenger appeared, her beads wet with drops of light. Osazuwa bowed. She smiled gently and said, "You have built well. Listen, your fortune flows as long as you keep giving your first gifts. When you forget, your nets will dry. Remember this rule, for the river listens always." Osazuwa promised. She touched the air above his head like a blessing and vanished with the rain. The shrine glowed faintly in the dusk. Far away, the palace drums rolled faster, troubled, as though calling a storm. Back in the city, the Oba woke from uneasy sleep. Dreams had shown him dry riverbeds, cracked earth, and empty baskets. He sent for his priest, who frowned and whispered, "The golden fish is angry. It must be offered again." Courtiers nodded, frightened by the priest's tone. Messengers hurried through the streets. By dawn, Osazuwa was summoned to the palace once more. He stood before the Oba and told the truth. "Great king, I gave the golden fish as told. I keep giving my first gifts each week. The river asks no more." But the priest's eyes narrowed, his voice sharp. "We must test this boy again." A silence thick as night filled the hall. At Osazuwa's small farm, life grew despite the worry in the city. One of his calves gave birth at dawn. The newborn calf stumbled on thin legs, soft-eyed and gentle. Osazuwa named her Uanalakan, Alakan's beauty. He carried fresh milk to the palace, laid food at the learning house for hungry children, and returned smiling. But at his shrine, he found chaos. The fish and yams he had offered were scattered across the ground. The mat was torn, shells broken. His heart dropped. In the mud lay a braided cord, still damp. He knew this cord well. Amareg often tied his bundles with such braids. Osazuwa knelt, trembling. He gathered the shells, set them again, and prayed. The river lapped quietly, as though waiting. His vow held, but anger stirred in his chest. "Why would my neighbors steal from the river itself?" he whispered. The sky answered with a distant rumble, a warning carried on the wind. Far away, Amareg laughed low with Igatalo, clutching a stolen jar. They had tasted risk and wanted more. What they did not know was that the river was watching. And the river forgets nothing. That night, when the moon was only a thin hook of light, Amareg and Igatalo crept back to the shrine. They carried a clay jar and whispered of riches. "We will scoop the river's gifts before Osazuwa arrives," Amareg said. "Then the spirit will feed us first." Their feet pressed softly on the wet ground. They reached the shrine and bent low, lifting the scattered offerings. They tipped the jar, trying to collect the oil, fish, and shells meant for the water spirit. But the river stirred. A swell rose without wind. From the dark water, a long snout pushed up, broad, heavy, and armored. A crocodile's yellow eyes glowed like lanterns. Its jaws snapped with a crack like breaking wood. The men dropped the jar. It shattered, scattering shards and oil. They stumbled back, terrified. In their rush, they left behind a seal of red wax stamped with the Oba's mark, the kind only palace storehouses used. The river closed again, calm as if nothing had happened. But the shrine smelled of fear and broken trust. Amareg and Igatalo ran until their chests ached, their greed now tangled with dread. Behind them, the crocodile's tail slapped once, warning them that spirits guard their gifts well. At dawn, Osazuwa came to pray at the shrine. His eyes caught the red wax seal half buried in mud. He picked it up, turning it over. The mark of the palace gleamed clearly. His heart grew heavy. So it was not only neighbors' envy, he thought. Someone high in the palace guides them. He wrapped the seal in cloth and walked quickly to the city. In the great courtyard, he bowed before the Oba and laid the broken seal at his feet. The king's face darkened. "Who dares steal what is offered to Alakan?" he thundered. Whispers ran through the courtiers like dry leaves in the wind. The priest stepped forward, his eyes sharp. "Great king, beware this boy. He lies to cover his own tricks. Perhaps he steals from the shrine and now blames others." His words cut like knives. Some nodded in fear, others frowned, doubting. The Oba slammed his staff. "We will not live in shadows. The river will decide." He declared a public test at Udoalakan. Before all eyes, Osazuwa and his accusers will cast their nets. The river will speak. The crowd gasped. A date was set. Drums carried the news through the city. Even the parrots cried out as if they knew something mighty was coming. The day of the test arrived. The path to Udoalakan was thick with people. Drummers beat steady rhythms. Mothers carried children on their backs. Traders closed their stalls to see the truth revealed. The river lay still, waiting. Osazuwa stepped forward first, his old net in his hands. The crowd hushed. He cast with calm arms. The net sank, spread, and after a moment, he pulled. The rope strained, but not in anger, only with blessing. The net came up heavy with fat, shining fish. They flopped in heaps, scales flashing in the sun. The people cheered. "The river knows him," they shouted. Next came Amareg. He threw his new, wide net with greedy force. It sank deep. He pulled hard, face sweating, but when the net rose, only heavy stones clattered onto the bank. Some laughed nervously. Others shook their heads. Then Igodalo tried. His net came up writhing with snakes. They twisted and hissed. The crowd drew back in fear. "This is no blessing," someone cried. Last, the Oba commanded the priest to cast. He stepped forward slowly, lips tight. He cast his net with practiced arms. It sank deep, and then nothing. The water went flat, smooth as glass. The crowd grew still. All eyes stared at the pool, waiting. The pool rippled once, twice. Then the golden fish rose. Its body gleamed brighter than the sun, and its voice rang clear though it never moved its mouth. "Obedient hands open rivers," it said, but greedy hands close them. Its words rolled like thunder across the bank. The priest's face went pale. Almareg and Igodalo dropped their nets, trembling. The Oba stood frozen, staff gripped tightly. The crowd gasped and fell to their knees. Even the trees seemed to bow. Dark clouds gathered above, swirling fast. The golden fish sank slowly back into the pool. Then heavy drops of rain fell, cold and thick. The first splash made ripples that spread wide. The second splash grew louder. Within moments, the sky split open with a flood of water. People screamed and ran for shelter. The river leapt its banks and surged into the fields. Houses shook. Chickens fluttered, goats bleated, and children cried. Osazuwa clutched his net and looked toward the shrine. His heart raced. "This storm is no curse," he told himself. "It is a call." He ran through rising water, shouting for people to follow him uphill. The rain hammered down, but still he pressed on, searching for the messenger in the storm. Water rose fast, swirling through the streets. Palm trees bent. Thatched roofs leaked. The drums of the city drowned in thunder. Osazuwa reached the shrine and fell to his knees. "Messenger," he cried. "Alakan. Take my land, take my calves, even my beads if you must. Just spare the town. Let the river rest." The mist thickened, and the messenger appeared. Her shell beads dripped silver water, her face calm as the storm roared around her. She raised a hand, and the rain paused as though listening. "The river does not wish for pain," she said. "It asks only for the first gifts returned." Behind her, the Oba and his guards waded through the flood. The people gathered, shivering. The messenger turned to the priest. "Speak the truth." Her voice cut sharper than lightning. The priest trembled, his lips dry. At last he whispered, "I told Almareg and Igodalo to steal. I wanted fear to give me power." His words fell heavy, louder than the rain. Gasps broke from the crowd. The Oba's face hardened. He gripped his staff. "The truth has been revealed." The priest bowed his head in shame. The storm eased, but the river still lapped at doorsteps, waiting for what would come next. The messenger's voice rang clear over the frightened crowd. "The river is not cruel. It is only hungry for what was promised. Return the first gifts, your best fish, your first yams, your pure oil, and peace will return." She pointed at Osazuwa. "Lead them." Osazuwa bowed his head. He called to the people, "Bring what you have. Not the leftovers, but the first of your baskets. The river wants our honesty, not our scraps." At first, the crowd hesitated. They were wet, tired, and afraid. But then a widow stepped forward with her last yam. A fisherman came with a basket of fish. Children carried palm nuts and tiny gourds of oil. Soon a long line formed, each person giving what they could. Osazuwa led them to the flood's edge. He set down the biggest basket before the water, filled with food meant for widows and orphans. "This is our promise," he said. The people repeated his words together, their voices rising above the storm. The rain softened, falling now as a gentle shower. The swollen river stilled, its fury easing. Then fish leapt from the water into baskets, as though eager to be caught. The people shouted with joy. Even the Oba's guards clapped their hands. The flood had listened. The river had accepted the gifts. Morning came with light as soft as milk. The water that had drowned the fields was gone, leaving behind dark, rich soil. The river flowed calmly, wide and shining. Children ran to the banks, laughing, pointing at fish that still jumped willingly into their baskets. Families who had lost food now found their baskets full. The Oba called his people to the palace square. He raised his staff. "Let it be known," he said, "the river does not serve lies or fear. From this day, Osazuwa will be keeper of the flow, protector of the waters and guide to our offerings." The crowd cheered. The priest was stripped of his beads and sent away, no longer trusted. His eyes held shame, though a shadow of anger still flickered there. Almaregbe and Nagadalo were called forward, trembling. The king's voice rang out, "You will clean the riverbanks for 1 year, so your hands may learn to serve, not steal." The men bowed their heads, too afraid to protest. Osazuwa stood quietly, his beads glowing red in the morning sun. He did not boast, but bowed to the Oba and to the people. "The river's gift is not mine alone," he said. "It belongs to all who share." His words flowed like the calm water nearby. Osazuwa walked back to the Ikpoba with Arai at his side. She leaned on a stick, her eyes proud and wet with tears. The calves followed behind, one still wobbling on thin legs. At the shrine, Osazuwa placed new shells and fresh palm leaves. He bowed low. "I will not forget," he whispered. "First gifts will always return to you." The messenger did not appear, but the water rippled gently as though nodding. Neighbors gathered. They brought small offerings of their own, laying them beside Osazuwa's. Together they sang thanks. A fisherman cried, "No more empty nets." A mother laughed, "No more hungry nights." Even the children danced, slapping the water with their feet until it sparkled. Almaregbe and Nagadalo watched from a distance. Their mouths were bitter, but their hands already carried baskets to begin the year of cleaning. "Perhaps we will learn," Igadalo murmured. Almareg said nothing, his eyes lowered to the dirt. Arai touched Osazuwa's shoulder. "Your father would be proud," she said softly. Osazuwa's throat tightened, but he smiled. Above them, the sky stretched wide and blue, no longer heavy with storm. The river had become friend again, and the people knew it was honesty that had opened its hand. Seasons turned, and the riverbanks grew green. The fields thrived with yam and maize. The market was never short of fish. Osazuwa worked hard but never forgot to set aside the first share. He gave it to the shrine, to the widows, to the orphans, before keeping a bite for himself. The people followed his example. Every week, laughter rose by the river as baskets were laid down with thanks. Children sang, "Keeper of the Flow," whenever they saw him. Travelers came from far villages to see the shrine and learn the story of the golden fish. The Oba visited once, smiling, and said, "Your honesty has become a crown heavier than beads." Almaregbe and Nagadalo, after months of cleaning, began to soften. Their hands grew rough but steady. Some nights they sat by the shrine and stared at the water, silent, perhaps listening for forgiveness. The priest, far away, lived in quiet exile, his power broken. One evening, as the sun bled red over the water, Osazuwa looked at his calves grazing and his mother cooking by the fire. He remembered the laughter at his empty nets, the first tug of the golden fish, the storm, the flood. His heart swelled. "The river tested me," he thought. "But it gave me more than I dreamed." Now listen, friends, as I close this tale. Osazuwa, the poor fisherman, became the keeper of the flow. His nets no longer came up empty, because his hands stayed honest and his heart stayed open. The people of Benin remembered that greed dries rivers, but sharing keeps them full. The golden fish was never seen again, but its lesson shone brighter than its scales. The story you have just heard is a beautiful African tale I heard long ago. I'm telling you to wake your minds to kindness, fairness, and how we should care for our orphans and hungry neighbors. If you were Osazuwa, what vow would you keep? Would you choose greed, or would you feed others first and find your own blessing along the way? I want to know your opinion because every story is like a candle that can light the path for someone else. God bless you, and may courage guide your hands. Meanwhile, on the final screen, I am leaving you with one of the channel's most beloved folktales. I am sure they will surprise you. Thank you for staying with me until this moment. And remember, if you're watching this video, please like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching my folktale story from. I want to know how far it has traveled.